Good morning. How are you? So welcome to this second day, and we will start the national conference. This is our sixth edition. Of course, this time is a very special edition, as we are during the summit, and we will start the session presenting buildingSMART, what it does and how it does. And so please enjoy, and I will let Aidan go on with this first session. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorenzo. Yeah, so welcome back, everybody. Good morning, and I hope you enjoyed your evenings and enjoyed a bit of Rome. Welcome back to those online. Sorry we're running a little bit late. I was just boasting this morning that we'd had no technical hiccups yesterday, and of course this morning all the slides were empty, and yeah, we had to scramble there very quickly. So sorry about that. But really glad that you can join us. We've got a lineup of very interesting sessions now, and we're going to kick off this this session with Julien Moutte, who's the new CTO of Bentley Systems. You have to appreciate his T-shirt as well. If you can't read it, it says Bentley loves IFC. So I think that's fantastic support there. So Julien, welcome to the stage, and we'll like to listen to you about some digital twins.
Thank you so much. So I hope good morning, everyone. I hope you had a good dinner yesterday. We are starting a bit later to accommodate for everyone. So yeah, a bit more time to wake up here. Oh, thank you so much. So I have a lot of reasons to be excited to be here. First, it's my first buildingSMART conference, and I'm really happy to discover this friendly community. And secondly, as Aidan just mentioned, I will be the Chief Technology Officer of Bentley in a few days. And that's a big responsibility, but also a great opportunity to have an impact for digital twins and open standards overall. So I'm here today to tell you about digital twins. What are they? Why would you create one or many? And how to use them, right? So let's start with a definition. At Bentley, we are the infrastructure engineering software company. So for us, when we talk about digital twins, we talk about infrastructure digital twin. And an infrastructure digital twin is a realistic and dynamic digital representation of a physical asset, a system, or a city. But what does that really mean? Well, as you can see on the drawing that's behind me, it's all about data. Indeed, data is the lifeblood that will make a digital twin an accurate and useful representation of its physical counterpart. Data that observes, data that monitors, data that complements and enriches, data that measures, but also data about what currently is, what was, or what might be. With that data, we can then do analysis. We can build that understanding, that representation of the real world, and we can take decisions, we can extract insights, and through those decisions, we'll trigger interventions which will have outcomes. So that's an interesting construct, because if we think about it, this is what our brains are doing all day long. Our human brains are acquiring data by our senses, whether sight, hearing, smell, touch, and we're combining that data, we're aligning it so that we have 3D vision, we can have our balance. We're combining that data, we apply our intelligence to it to extract those insights, to analyze and understand the world around us. And then based on this, we can take decisions. We can take actions, and with those, we can achieve incredible outcomes, like going to space or driving a race car. I think this is an interesting analogy because it helps us understand that by building this representation, this understanding of the physical world in the digital world, we are allowing machines, we are allowing software to augment us, to help us experience those physical assets in different ways. First, because the machines have this representation, this understanding of the physical world, we can use them as a proxy. We can experience, we can apply our own intelligence to the digital twins without having to be on site. So if you think about visual inspections of a bridge, of an asset, if you think about rehearsing or training your teams on something, you don't need to send them there anymore. You can use the digital twin for that by providing data feed to your brain without having to be there. Now, because we have this reconstruction of the physical asset, this understanding, We can also apply artificial intelligence. And this is some keywords that came yesterday. And with this artificial intelligence, we can ask the machines to help us discover new insights and to unlock new outcomes, which will allow us to operate better and to achieve completely new benefits and results. So, what kind of data do we have? We have three big families, and I think it's very important to understand first, and going back to this analogy, that the purpose is driving the data requirements. What data do you need for a digital twin? Well, if we go back to the previous analogy, the human brain is completely fine with a decent sight, average hearing and smell, and this has allowed us to survive for thousands of years. If we look at other creatures out there, though, many of them have different kind of needs. They have different kind of requirements. And for this, they need to have a different representation of the world around them. Think about infrared sight, or the sonar echolocations, or vibration sensitivity. So really, the purpose is driving the data requirements. And for digital twins, we see three big families of data that comes into them. The first one is the digital context. This is the photos, the videos, the scanners, the point clouds that will tell you about what currently is happening on the physical side. But it's also the sensors that is going to bring that data to understand what currently is happening. Then all the data we have in the cloud, in our IT systems, is bringing the digital chronology. Those are the work orders, the inspection records, the scheduling, the analysis that you can have in the cloud and in computing that is going to track what has happened and to try to understand the patterns in there. And then finally, we have the engineering data, the BIM models, the documents, the drawings. All of those are providing the digital components that we can reuse from one project to another. So now that we understand the different family of data types that we have in digital twins, let's dive into the why. Why would you build a digital twin? Every one of you in this room has a different reason to do so. You have different kind of physical assets you might want to monitor, different kind of outcomes you would like to achieve. So we cannot cover them all, but what I can do today is to show you a few examples of digital twins that are already out there and unlocking massive benefits for their users. So let's start to go by Brazil. In Joinville, Brazil, they are experiencing severe water droughts every winter. And this is a topic that I have a lot of empathy with because I live in Spain, in Barcelona, and we're starting to experience this kind of droughts as well. All the lakes are empty, the water reservoir, and this is starting to be very concerning. In Joinville, this is a big problem because their citizens are experiencing water shortage at the tap, and this has a massive impact for the population. So the team at Companhia de Águas de Joinville has created a digital twin of their water network, which spans over 2,300 kilometers underground with water reservoir. And using this digital twin, they've been able to analyze and simulate the conditions on their network during those upcoming droughts. With digital twin, they were able to understand that the contingency plan that they had already prepared for the upcoming droughts was not going to be optimal, and that the citizens were still going to experience water shortage. Instead, with the digital twin, they were able to come up with a better plan that would help them with their existing infrastructure to ensure that water was going to be supplied to every citizen all the time. The previous plan that they had was going to cost $1 million, so they were able to save that money while delivering a better outcome. I think this is a truly inspiring use case for a digital twin. This digital twin brings engineering data of the water network and also the operational data from the sensors, understanding how it behaves, and then being able to simulate this with computing. This is experienced using a web interface. So the digital twin they've created is experienced via a web browser, and this is providing a map where you see the network and you can interact with different kind of points and run simulations. Let's now teleport to France and to the future of clean energy. The ITER project is one of the most ambitious energy projects out there. It involves 35 countries, and it's the first project that is going to test fusion reaction for a long period of time. This is also a good way for the community to test the commercial productivity of net clean energy. Now, one of the big challenges of this project is the very complex assembly of the components. Indeed, to achieve fusion, you need to contain the plasma, and the plasma is contained in the chamber that we call the tokamak. And the tokamak is created by gigantic magnets that weigh more than 1,500 tons. Bringing those magnets from all over the world into the assembly hall and preparing to assemble them there is a very, very challenging task. So the team at ITER, to be able to orchestrate all of this and to simulate, they have created a digital twin of the assembly hall and the fusion reactor. And what they do is that they bring virtually those components and they can test how they will fit into the assembly hall and what kind of steps are necessary to assemble them with a millimeter precision in the fusion chamber. This digital twin is particularly interesting because it's using engineering data with very high precision and high fidelity models, but it's also bringing the IT data around scheduling, orchestrating a 4D immersion review of the assembly process with a very immersive experience. So you can experience that digital twin using game engines and a virtual reality headset, allowing the operators to really immerse themselves in the assembly hall and figuring how things are going to happen, almost as if in reality. Let's now fly to Sydney and land in their very efficient airport. So at Sydney, they have a very big airport spanning over 906 hectares, 400 buildings, and the teams that are there in charge of maintaining and operating that airport are working with a digital printing room, meaning that in a web server, they have tens of thousands of PDF files containing the drawings, the plans, all the data that they need to be able to service and operate the airport. Accessing that data is complex and costly for them. You need to find it, collate it, print it, so that you can then go on site and do the job. To try to achieve more efficiencies, the team at Sydney, which is created a tool that they call Maps at SID, and this tool, Maps at SID, is allowing them to bring all this information together into the foundation of a digital twin, where the users, based on their role, can navigate on a map and find the contextual information they need to be able to do the operation work that they've been scheduled for. Using that tool, the operators are able to save a massive amount of time. They've made some tests and asking the same operators who know where the information is in the digital printing room to time, how long does it take for them to find the relevant information for the work they have to do. The difference between the existing digital printing room and the digital twin they have created is of 6 minutes and 30 seconds to find one document for one operation. They have 200 users using the system right now. So if you project this over a full day, this is $3,000 of workload and time saved. And they plan to expand this further by bringing more data into the digital twin, allowing more users and stakeholders to benefit from it, and potentially also enable this for a digital twin that is available to citizens. There again, we see a digital twin which is bringing a lot of engineering data, all the documents, all the data sheets, etc., together with maps and operational data from IT systems. While we are on this side of the Earth, let's go to Jakarta in Indonesia. In Jakarta, they are building a high-speed train line between Jakarta and Bandung. This is going to foster a culture of public transportation in Indonesia. This is also a very challenging location for this kind of product. So the team that was working on that project, they realized that the current and traditional surveying methods and working with 2D drawings, etc., was not going to be efficient. They also had a very high pressure to deliver with a constrained schedule. So what they did instead is that they created an integrated BIM and digital twin project to design and construct this project. This is a massive train and railway. It spans over 143 kilometers, and it involves many, many constructors. Using this digital twin, the team has been able to deliver 6 months early on their project, which is a massive outcome. But not only that, they've also been able to save $185 million of public money building that massive asset. I think this is an outcome we can all agree is phenomenal. So we've seen that the benefits of those digital twins are already there for many of the users that have been able to build them. I think we've also understood that a digital twin is first and foremost a continuous data integration project. It's all about data. Now, when you hear this continuous data integration project, two thoughts should come to mind, two concerns actually. The first one is that this data is highly valuable. I mean, the work it took to bring that data together is substantial. So when you have it, you want to make sure you can retain access to that data in the long run. So it has to stay open. And this is why you understand why I'm wearing that t-shirt. This data has to be accessible through open source software. It has to be accessible through open APIs. And more than anything, it has also to be able, you have to be able to access that data using open standards. The second thought that should come to mind is that wouldn't it be nice if you could use the tools and products that are going to make it possible for you to do this data integration project as you go, so that it's not an afterthought to have to recover all that data from the different silos they live in and then have to do the manual work of integrating this. If you could build, if you can use tools that will do that for you, it would be so much easier. So think about how can you make this data integration process happen on the go, on the way. So at Bentley, we have two approaches to address those two concerns, which I would like to share with you today. The first one is that we have created a digital twin platform. We call it the iTwin platform. This is an open platform. And when I say open, I mean that it's based on open source technologies. We have a library, which is called iTwin.js, which contains hundreds of components, which are used to develop our iTwin-based applications, and also the foundational work that manages that data and this alignment. It exposes an open API, which you can access on developer.bentley.com. And that API will let you manage and access your data, whether operational data, engineering data, or reality data. And then finally, it's embracing open standards. So you can build a digital twin in our iTwin platform starting from an IFC file. You can also use plenty of other file formats from the different kind of CAD engineering tools out there. But then you can also export your digital twin at any step of the life cycle of that asset using IFC. There is a cloud service to do that, and it supports the IFC export for your digital twin, making it completely operable. And finally, this platform is also using our own standard we have created for the persistence of CAD data during the design phase, during the authoring phase, and also for deliverables, which we call iModels, which is also based on an aligned schema and which is tracking changes with an open source approach. Then this platform lets you build applications so that you can mix those data, align them together, and experience them in a different kind of scenarios that I've exposed previously to you before, whether in game engines, web platforms, virtual reality headset, or completely headless to run simulations and monitoring. The second approach we have for the second concern is that we have the incredible opportunity at Bentley that we have a very broad portfolio of products and tools. Indeed, I don't know if you know all of those tools. I might not know all of them just yet, but we have tools that are covering the design phase, the construction phase, the operation phase, and for every discipline, and also working with the data types of any kind, whether above ground, below ground, with geotechnical data from all the kind of engineering disciplines we support. And the breadth and depth of that portfolio is a unique opportunity to make sure that those products are going to facilitate this data integration project I was telling you about. Our promise to our users is that we're going to use, even more so now, this iTwin platform as our data integration layer between all of those products, so that when you use one of those products to design or to construct or to operate, the data that you generate is systematically going into a digital twin and it's being aligned for you, so that your data integration project comes naturally as you're making progress. So I'm going to conclude here by saying that at Bentley, we're convinced that by going digital and by creating digital twins, you can build better infrastructure and you can build it better, and our world needs it. And we believe we have the tools to help you do that. So please reach out. We'll be happy to tell you more about that. Thank you.
Let's ask you a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Just check this mic's working. Thank you, Julien. That was really interesting. I thought whilst I've got you here, I'll just ask you a couple of questions around the presentation and some of the topics that we've seen at this event so far. In particular, this sort of digital twins and how it's perceived sometimes. So we were talking yesterday about digital twins and what they are, but do you find at Bentley sometimes you have to describe what they're not? Because some people feel digital twins are just, a sort of a digital model and that's sufficient, or do you find that the actual true breadth of what digital twins can provide is still difficult to articulate?
So we spend a lot of time now trying to explain what are the outcomes, because it's very difficult to relate to the data construct and understand exactly what it is. I was saying in my definition that it's realistic, but what do you consider realistic? It's highly subjective. It has to be realistic enough for your purpose, right? And we're also saying dynamic, but same thing. What does that mean? I mean, for your specific outcome, it might be completely fine if the sensor data is updating once a week, right? So it's really trying to understand what are the outcomes. There's not too many things that a digital twin is not. So we try to understand what are the challenges we need to overcome, and really the digital twin is that understanding of the physical world. So it's a very broad term, but we really try to relate that to outcomes all the time.
Yeah, and how much can we learn from other industries that do digital twins, let's say, better? So, it's difficult to compare, but manufacturing does a really good job in certain areas, and the aerospace industry clearly has really good uses. So, how much could we learn from other industries?
Well, I think we're learning a lot. So this concept of digital twin is not new. It has started in the 60s. I think the manufacturing industry was much faster in implementing them. Now we are seeing that taking some kind of speed in the infrastructure space. This is something we've been believing in for many years already. I think there's a lot to learn in the outcomes they've been able to achieve, right? The gain of productivity, of efficiency, safety, etc. There's a lot we can invent as well, because the outcomes that we can achieve in infrastructure are very different. So it's a mix of reusing some of their processes, how do they align data, etc., with the unique aspects of challenges we have to solve.
Yeah, and finally, there was a question yesterday around digitally aware owners and digitally enabled owners. So how much are you seeing now owner operators and infrastructure asset owners becoming much more digitally enabled to go digital and specifying what they need? Do you see that trend increasing?
Absolutely. So every year we have our own conference, which we call the Year in Infrastructure, where we have the Going Digital Awards, a bit like the awards we had yesterday, but we give awards to, well, we have an independent jury that's giving awards to projects which are delivering true outcome and breakthrough with their approach to infrastructure and going digital. We have seen that over the past few years, the trend of projects that are using digital twins is increasing steadily. And this is very inspiring. We see that really the owners are becoming more and more digitally enabled, and that they're really starting to harvest the benefits from building digital twins, which is truly inspiring.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thanks
and yeah.
Thank you.
After that, thank you very much, Julien, again. We just move into the next part of this session, which was actually a response to some feedback we had in Montreal, which was to better describe what buildingSMART is and what we do to our community. So this session, if we've got the next slides, please. Am I able to control it? There we go. Yeah, so we then responded with this idea of what is buildingSMART, and we've got some, hopefully some enjoyable sessions now really describing some of that for us. The community itself, as many of us know, is structured very much like this. buildingSMART International is supported by our members and our sponsors who help to maintain the work done at buildingSMART International in the community. We are represented by our chapters. We have 30 chapters, I think we said yesterday from Clive. Chapter in formation now in India, which is really fantastic. And Clive mentioned that we're hoping soon to have some presence in South America. So these emerging markets is really, really exciting time. Obviously deliver our summits, which we are here today at, 2 a year. So we'll be in Lillestrøm, just outside of Oslo in September. And of course, we also have these agreements with our partners, as I mentioned earlier, around some of those MOUs that we signed yesterday, Geospatial World and the ICIS as well. We also have agreements with OGC and CERN and other organizations like the Digital Twin Consortium. And I think these really help for us to initiate work and develop standards that go through the standards process that you'll hear about shortly. We then have 3 core programs: the user program, the standards and solutions program, and the compliance program. This is where all the work resides within buildingSMART, and we do have some out-of-scope special thinking groups, I suppose, that help us develop some of the topics like digital twins and asset management and things like that. But that really feeds back into the solutions and standards program that we have run by Richard Kelly. So that's the overall structure of buildingSMART itself. But then I thought about what is it that really makes buildingSMART, and I don't know if there was a feeling amongst the crowd, but certainly at the evening, we felt that it was really around the community and the people. And that is what's driving buildingSMART forward. So ultimately, we are a collection of people that contribute to the betterment of our industry. Last night, we heard from a lot of the fellows, award winners, that actually 99.9% of people that receive fellowship awards do it because they want to, and do it because they are passionate about the things that they do. And that is very inspiring. And I think if you're new to this, that is quite an inspiring thing, that people put their own time and effort into developing open standards and open data. And this was, of course, yesterday. So I suddenly realized that the feeling that we have at buildingSMART is around building the community, and how wonderful that we're able to capture some of these photos throughout buildingSMART. So that is a very short introduction, which I'd like to now hand over to Richard and John Proctor from buildingSMART International, and they're going to talk about the BSI process and the programs. Do you like 2 mics?
Testing, testing.
Thank you, Richard.
Welcome. Morning, everybody. Yes, I'm Richard Kelly. This is my colleague, John Proctor.
Hello.
And we're going to be taking you through how the BSI process works. The BSI process is established to allow all the people that we've got in our chapter community and our membership community, of which there are hundreds, if not thousands, it allows them to work together with a good structure to create and produce new open BIM related standards. So we're going to explain to you how that works and take you through it in a little bit more detail. First thing to recall is that buildingSMART really, it's a demand-led organization. So within the organization of buildingSMART Management Office, where John and I and Aidan work, we don't actually create the demand for what needs to be produced. That comes from you. That comes from the community. And it comes from industry, who say, we have requirements for data exchange, open neutral data exchange. And they put forward, what their requirements are. They also provide the leadership within the community to make sure that the process is followed correctly. And we're going to take you through the process. So this is what the organization map looks like at buildingSMART. It's a democracy. It's a democracy in that in order to achieve a new standard, you have to have full international consensus. Otherwise, it's not credible, and it needs to have the right quality and rigor. So our organization map looks something like this. And in a democracy, if it was a government, you'd have the legislative area, you'd have the executive, and you'd have the judiciary. Well, we haven't got quite the same things. We do have 3 different areas. We have the room leadership off to the left-hand side, and we have the governance at the top, and then we have the project delivery management in the middle there. And if I just explain what this looks like in a little bit more detail. The projects to develop a new standard go through the BSI process, and they start off in the initiation phase, they go through a development phase, and they come out at the other end when they've been approved. And there are checks along the way where voting takes place by the Standards Committee to ensure that the process is being followed. Now, I'll explain to you in a minute what the Standards Committee is. But first, let's look at the rooms. So the rooms have a steering committee, and the room is a specialist domain, such as infrastructure or building or airport. And they have a steering committee that is elected from their part of the industry, from our members, and these are the people that know most about what the requirements in that part of the industry are. And the steering committee sets the plan for the room for the next 4 or 5 years, and it oversees the activities that deliver new standards. And those standards are delivered through the projects, so I just intimated. So the room steering committee is the first place that a new proposal will go. Once the room steering committee is happy that the proposal they've received, is of sufficient quality and responds to their mission and vision, it will go to what we call the Standards Committee Technical Executive. And these are a group of people who represent the best technical knowledge about open bin processes in the business. And they have some harmonization work to do, and we'll explain to you in a moment what that is. It then goes to the Standards Committee Executive, who are a senior group of people in the organization from the community who have then oversight of what the room has said, what the Standards Committee Technical Executive has said, and they decide whether it is fit to go to the Standards Committee. And the Standards Committee is everybody that's a member of buildingSMART, whether it be a chapter or an organization, has a vote on the Standards Committee. So there's over 100 people on the Standards Committee now. And this is where the international consensus takes place, because everything that is produced goes through the process, has a vote, it is voted on by the Standards Committee, and that's what gives this robustness. So the first thing that happens when a set of requirements needs to be turned into a new standard is we receive an activity proposal. So John, do you have an activity proposal?
You'd like an activity proposal,
Yes,
Richard?
please.
Okay. Oh. Here we go.
An activity proposal. It's quite small at this stage, and the reason it's quite small is because actually at this stage, it is just a set of requirements. There isn't necessarily in here at the moment a resource plan. There isn't necessarily a set of deliverables. It is really just, this is what needs to be done, and we have some commitment to do it. So we've received this from one of our members. And what happens next is this activity proposal will go to the room steering committees. And here's our room steering committees, all 9 of them. So it'll go to one of these, depending what it is. And the room steering committee is representative of industry. So what does the room steering committee want to do with this activity proposal?
Okay. Thank you, Richard. So I am now the room steering committee. And the room steering committee will review the activity proposal, and they will ask themselves, does it fit with my room charter, which describes the mission and goals of the room? Is it well supported in the community, and will it support user needs and industry? Is it sufficiently funded, and can the room help support with seeking further funding?
Wonderful. Okay. So if the room is happy, then it goes to the Standards Committee Technical Executive. And as I say, these are the people with the biggest technical brains. And because they've got the biggest brains, they need a little fan to cool it down. Over to the Standards Committee Technical Executive.
Thank you, Richard. I am now the Standards Committee Technical Executive.
Missed.
And I missed.
Hang on. There we go.
Is my propeller turning, Richard?
It is now.
Thank you. The Standards Committee Technical Executive will review the proposal, and they will say, are relationships to current and previous standards sufficiently noted? Are there technical merits in the scope and objectives of this proposal? Have all possible challenges been indicated? Are there sufficient technical skills being considered for project execution? Is the proposal sufficiently international? Is there sufficient review and governance of the technical aspects? And is the execution of the technical given enough time and budget?
Marvelous. So now the activity proposal can go to the Standards Committee Executive. Here they are. Over to the Standards Committee Executive. And they ask.
Thank you, Richard. I am now the Standards Committee Executive, and the Executive will ask, is this proposal well aligned with the buildingSMART mission? Is there overlap between other projects? Is there confidence that the proposal understands proper project management and the BSI process? Is it well aligned with standards development in other organisations? And has it been validated with ISO and SEN requirements?
So if the SCE are happy that we're going to send this to the Standards Committee for vote, then we will send it to the Standards Committee for vote, which is representatives of all of our members.
Thank you, Richard. I am now the Standards Committee. The Standards Committee will review the proposal as well, and they will ask themselves, is the proposal relevant for being developed to an international standard? Is it of real international interest? Based on the proposal, is there a need to support the project with more resources or experts? And if there is there any interest from their organisation or chapter to provide such support?
Wonderful. So, at this stage, the activity proposal gets shared. It may be that other people want to join in with the proposing team, and therefore they can start working on a detailed project plan. Have you got a detailed project plan, John?
A detailed project plan, Richard? That would be bigger than an activity proposal, wouldn't it?
It would, because at this stage, the detailed project plan will include things like, what are the deliverables going to be of this outcome? What are the milestones? What's the team? Who's going to be on the expert panels? What's the source of funding? And at this stage, if it's got all those things and it goes to that vote again that we've just described, it can then enter the project process and start to be delivered. Now, we'll come back to what happens to it next. But I think it's first probably worth looking at what actually happens generally in a buildingSMART project. So we start off with this set of requirements. What's the problem to be solved? That's the input. We've just discussed that. And then once it gets into the project, there's one of two things can happen to it. First is, it might be, as it says at the bottom there, create new entities in IFC. So the projects that we've been running for the last few years to extend IFC for infrastructure, which has developed IFC 4.3, it did just that. It actually extended the IFC. But more often than not these days, if we've got a project, for example, to capture airport-specific entities, what can happen, or what should happen, is it's a project to input properties into the bSDD. And through the new buildingSMART Data Dictionary, those entities then go into the IFC semi-automatically. What will then happen is that the various channels will be open to IFC. Now, this used to be what was called MVD. We're now using something and developing something called IDS. But basically, that means that when the standard is created, if you are interested in building bridges, you want to be able to get access to all the bits that are relevant to building bridges. You don't want all the stuff to do with windows and doors, clearly. So that's what that means there, where it says open specific channels into IFC to make it usable. And then it's either 100% available in the IFC or the bSDD, and we publish it. And that is what a project does, start to finish. And obviously there's a lot more detail than that, but it's useful just to see, I think, the context. And we have a team at buildingSMART International now. We have a management office. It's only a small team. There's about 12 of us, some full-time, some part-time. And we're here to support you. We're here to support the members and the chapters. John, as you can see on the screen there, he's the International Program Coordinator for 3 of the rooms, Building, Infrastructure and Product. But you will also have seen around the venue this week, and they'll be supporting you in the sessions over the next 2 days, Sheila and Evandro, Laura, At the bottom there is Jeffrey Roulette, who we are now asking to be the person that helps the people that put forward activities with making their proposals more, I suppose, interesting and coherent, so that we can then hopefully get more engagement from industry. And then on the right-hand side is Claire, who's our finance manager, and as well as helping with the finances of the company, Claire works with the project leaders to make sure the finances of the projects are well managed, because all the finances come into buildingSMART International, and then we pay the contractors that deliver on the projects. And we do a lot of communication, make communication available to the people. So we, on the left-hand side, is a snapshot of a room web page, which of course anybody worldwide can open. It's publicly available. We are open and neutral. And on the right-hand side is a view of one of our project trackers that we use to follow all the activities that are happening at buildingSMART and the Solutions and Standards program. And you're able then, as a member, to go in, see what the status of any project is. There's a narrative on there, isn't there, that the international program coordinators keep updated.
There is indeed.
You can then, access all the information to do with that project and generally show an interest. But now we're at the stage of a final standard approval. So the detailed project plan has been executed through the project process. I probably need the...
And we have produced a final standard proposal.
Final standard proposal. So the final standard proposal is now quite a robust thing. And the first place it has to go is to the Standards Committee Technical Executive. And the Standards Committee Technical Executive, they've kept track of this project all the way through, but they've got some final questions to ask, and they are...
Thank you, Richard. I am now the Standards Committee Technical Executive. You'll be able to tell by the dark sunglasses that I am wearing. And the Technical Executive will ask themselves, has this final standard had technical aspects and deliverables that meet the project objectives? Has implementation participation by software vendors been sufficient? Has there been participation by the technical experts? Is the certification component ready for execution? And are the deliverables in sufficient format for release and distribution?
Okay. So if they're happy, we will then pass that to the Standards Committee Executive for their final look at it. Over to the Standards Committee Executive.
Thank you, Richard.
Ready?
So many hats and so little time. The Standards Committee Executive will review the final standard proposal, and they will ask, has the project been executed properly according to the BSI process? Have sufficient steps to achieve international consensus been taken? Has there been sufficient engagement with software and industry experts? Has the output proved to be relevant, useful, and valid for the industry? And are there any outstanding issues that need to be addressed?
And if they're happy, we then send it to final vote to the Standards Committee. Now, at this stage, there's a 12-week period for voting, so that there is plenty of opportunity for everybody in the chapters and members to share it around with their community. And in order for it to be passed as a BSI final standard, it has to achieve 65% positive outcome on the return of votes. So over to the Standards Committee.
Thank you, Richard. I am now the Standards Committee. The Standards Committee will review the final standard proposal, and they will ask, has the project been executed properly? Have sufficient steps been taken to achieve international consensus? Has there been sufficient engagement with software and industry experts? Is the output relevant, usable, and valid for the industry? And are there any outstanding issues that need to be addressed? And if more than 65% of the Standards Committee votes are in favour, the standard will be adopted.
Kick it away.
Excellent.
Final
responsibility. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Thanks, John and Richard. I hope everyone appreciates the many hats that we have to wear sometimes at BSI to describe the work that we do. So thank you very much. And I don't think you dropped a ball, and I nearly did, which was good. So I think that's a bit about some of the governance and the structure and the things that happen. So I think, you know, we always encourage our community to continue to think about projects that they would like to work on, and you know, people outside of this community that might want to contribute and submit projects as well. So if you do have some work items or activities, please do come to us and we'll help you through that process. Next up, we have two other gentlemen coming up here who also wear many hats. Léon is the Technical Director of buildingSMART International, and Evandro is the Solutions Accelerator. They've just accelerated from the railway room and the IDS presentation to be here just to talk about some of the technical aspects of buildingSMART. And I think it's a relatively open mic session, so interaction with the audience will be welcomed. And yeah, over to you. There's another mic which I can grab.
Yeah, so there's indeed two reasons why this is an open session. First one is we are absolutely unable to trump the previous presentation. That was brilliant. And the second reason is we are the geeks that wear the hats with the propellers, and we can talk for hours about abbreviations. And that's also actually what we requested from Aidan. If you want an introduction to all of the standards, we need about 2.5 hours, and then we get kind of the first level base introduction. And that was unacceptable. He only gave us 10 to 15 minutes. And if you Google for buildingSMART standards, quick overview, there is a video of 10 to 15 minutes that basically explains you the meaning of all of the abbreviations and all of the standards. But then you still have just the meaning of the abbreviations, not the real meaning and the added value that gives them. So we decided to wing it, basically collect your questions and hopefully then come back maybe during the summit or after the summit to answer the actual questions. There's a lot of people in different rooms now discussing which abbreviation is the best. But since this is the introduction session, we just really want to answer the questions that you have. Why did you come to the buildingSMART Summit? What kind of abbreviation do you want to learn more of? So this is indeed an open mic session that can be over very quickly if you don't have any questions, or can still take very long and make Aidan very nervous because we run out of time.
We have 2 microphones, so I can come to you. So just raise your hand. Easy. Is it working?
In English, in English.
In English, okay, I will try. I'll take the chance to. I mean, I'm a leader of a chapter, and sometimes I'm struggling to let's say, to communicate to my associates what would be their activity, what could be. For instance, let's be more practical. If you want to create a domain, what would you use on buildingSMART dictionary? Okay, let's say we are able to explain them why it's good to have a domain specific for their requirement. Now, how we should start a working group? What would be a good methodology to create a domain that is shared in our industry, for instance? So sometimes it's like I'm missing the methodology we should apply in our country to create or to implement some services or standards. For instance, IDS could be very useful for our industry, but I don't really know how to get them create a new IDS. So that probably is out of topic, but I think this is a need of for all chapters to be guided also in this, because we are not technical most of the time.
What do you want to do? Collect some questions and then, or just start with this one?
This is a difficult one.
Yeah, let me summarize because I speak Italian, so I can translate. So I guess the question is, from the perspective of a chapter leader, if someone comes to me saying, I want to put a domain in bSDD, how can I help them, right? How can I better help them? How can I start working groups around bSDD and IDS and all these technologies? More or less. Yeah.
Yeah, so quickly for everyone else in the rooms, we already had two abbreviations here, bSDD and IDS. bSDD is the buildingSMART Data Dictionary. It is an online database where people can publish their view on the world, their standards. There are more standards than IFC, thankfully, luckily. There are standards like national classification systems, co-class, uni-class. We have specific domain-specific standards like ETIM for the electrical domain and E-class. All of those standards can be used together with IFC. You can exchange an IFC model with additional classifications and properties from other standards. And the way to do that effectively is to publish them in the buildingSMART Data Dictionary, and then software vendors only have to connect to one dictionary to be able to use a multitude of different standards combined in one BIM model exchanged as IFC. And the buildingSMART Data Dictionary indeed got quite a workover. There was a new ISO standard, and there was a strong request for new use cases. So there was a new version released about 1.5 to 2 years ago. And all of a sudden that exploded. There's a huge interest indeed. Also, when you look at this summit, there's a lot of people, a lot of sessions on bSDD. And we also recently hired a bSDD product manager with Arthur. So you are asking a bit of you're putting salt in an open wound here. We know we are behind the curve on this. Arthur is catching up quite good. He's brilliant. So he did an overhaul of the documentation to make it more appealing and understandable for non-technical people. And he's also creating guidelines now. There's a really nice workshop tomorrow. Let's build a bSDD with post-it notes, very, very introduction level as well. So highly recommend going there. And yes, indeed, this is also something that we are working on to help the chapters and to help anyone else to put their data into the data dictionary.
Just checking because I think it's today, but yeah, it's today at 11.
Today at 11.
Sala
immediately
L.
after this session.
So
Perfect.
right after the coffee break. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sala L.
Yeah, it's just to, since it is then immediately after this session, just maybe additional notes that the data dictionary is not just for national standards and national classification systems. There's a lot of large clients, there's a lot of companies that put their standard into the data dictionary as well. We have seen examples half a year ago in Montreal of a contractor that puts in their view of the world with their properties, so they can quickly, even in SketchUp, add semantics to a model and then run automatic cost control, automatic scheduling. So there's a real added value of using the data dictionary that way to quickly get results. So it's not just for big clients or national standards. It also works very well for smaller and medium enterprises that really know what they want and have a specific use case in mind. I've seen the preparation of Arthur, and he wants to divide the group in different teams, so you can pick depending on your interest. If you're a product manufacturer or you're an engineer, or you had 8 categories and a lot of open fill in yourself questions as well. So highly recommend that session if you want to learn more about the data dictionary.
Cool. Anyone else? Could be someone new to the summit, completely new, like it's your first summit. Come on, I want to walk. I mean, this is too easy.
I would like to know, still relating to bSDD, if there is some work going on the footprint properties, because in Europe we are now obliged to define the footprint of buildings, And really, I think we are very far behind in many countries to understand what is the footprint of the design choice. Because when if you design with concrete, there is already a very higher footprint than using wood. So it will be too late when you are in the construction to decide which material you should use. And I think we need to make that understand to the architect and engineers that they should consider the footprint since the starting, otherwise will be too late then to change.
Yeah, so the data dictionary is a service from buildingSMART, and indeed we are. You can use it for free, so anyone can upload properties and classes for free to distribute them. And there are indeed a lot of people that are interested to upload properties. And I know that one of the groups in the product room also recently uploaded a whole set of sustainability properties, carbon emission properties. I think they did a translation from the ISO standards to make sure that it's the official one that you need to use in calculations. I think it's in the sandbox testing environment now, getting ready to be pushed to production. So yeah, I know that from the product room, there is this development, but I'm also aware that there's other people looking at pushing their properties for their calculations into the data dictionary as well. So from a buildingSMART perspective, we deliver the service, and anyone is free to upload the properties and the classes they want to it.
Anyone else? Aidan? Come on. Don't be shy.
Yeah, we might pick on some people who. So, geospatial worlds. I'll give you a minute to think about a question related to GIS and buildingSMART. Okay, so that's a topic that's come up a lot. One question I had was we hear a lot about digital twins. How do they relate to IFC, and what can we do about it? Because we hear a lot about digital twins from outside in, but what about inside out? So the schema itself. I don't want to get too technical with it, but how might digital twins be better enabled inside a buildingSMART related to some of the standards that we deliver?
Come on, seriously? The most tough question?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if I can link to the presentation from yesterday. So you've heard from Greg when yesterday talked about IFC 5 that the next generation of IFC needs to change a little bit. Okay, I know that some of you are already falling off the chair, but let's say the data schema of IFC was conceived many years ago in the era of files and files exchange. Now, all the discussions that we heard yesterday about digital twin, we frequently heard about interoperability, exchange of data, update, life cycles, all things that are pointing in a direction of exchanging small portion of data and not the entire model. Okay, so at the moment, without getting too technical, the current IFC schema is not the best schema if you want to exchange a small portion. Okay, think about a grape. Yeah, food analogy in Italy, sorry, quite obvious, but think about a grape, okay, like small grapes, and you want to pull just one. And in the current IFC schema, if you try to pull one, like extract just one piece of information, the whole vineyard come together. So IFC can definitely be a mean to leverage and to enhance digital twin, but to go through the horizon 1, 2, and 3, probably IFC schema needs a little bit of tweak. Again, I try not to be too technical.
So my question is, so IFC road, I know it's new, but it appears to be cross-section based, which is primarily 2D, and it doesn't look beautiful like the buildings and bridges do in the models in the common data environment. How realistic is it to try to get that to change to be more 3D design and implemented instead of more like the buildings and bridges rather than the 2D that it seems to be implemented at today? Is that a realistic thing to do, or am I just fool's errand?
A short answer, I think yes, it's realistic. I think it's partially already happening. So the game that is going to happen this afternoon, for example, just because you mentioned cross-session, like drawings of a road based on a cross-session. So the vendors that are supporting this game using IFC for the tree, so the latest version, are already using this concept of sweeping profiles along an alignment and parametric extrusions along a directrix. So yes, the vendors that are joining the game, I showed them yesterday. I didn't get it. Yeah. Yes, the vendors that are doing that are Trimble, Akka, Autodesk, Sierrasoft, and Rail Complete. I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. Again, I'm going by heart. Yeah, that's what they're trying to do with the Civil 3D in the game this afternoon. So maybe you can join the game and ask them directly.
Yeah. So since you talked about IFC 5, one question is what you see the future of open standards in the context of cloud and cloud platforms, as we see a lot of technologies are moving towards cloud. So what would happen in that context?
That's for you, Léon.
Jugal just asked me permission if he was allowed to ask that question. Yeah, I think if you talk about files or clouds, basically you still need to exchange data that is meaningful for the receiving party. So it doesn't really matter in principle if you send a file to someone that they can't read, or you give access to someone to data on a cloud platform that they still can't read. So the cloud and cloud processing is going to have a big impact on workflows and automation, but we still need to make these agreements on the data that you do share. So it's going to have a big impact because you want to have some kind of standardization and automation of accessibility as well, because receiving a file is easy, but getting access to something online needs this interface API standardization as well. But what you are actually getting, the data that you're transferring either in a file or through an API, still needs to be agreed and still needs to be standardized. So you're going to have a big impact on the workflows. It's also going to have a big impact on IFC, but it's probably not going to have a big impact on how people experience it. Except for the big improvements, of course, yeah. Yes. We're coming loose now. Ladies first, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I have a quick question. Like, are you looking forward to concepts like metaverse? We are talking, of course, a lot about digital twins, but what about metaverse?
So where's the Mentimeter with the buzzword? I don't personally, but Léon, do you have an idea? Are you aware of anything in that regards? So short answer is no, from my side.
Yeah, I got a question yesterday during dinner as well about the metaverse, and my reply question was, what is it? If we know what the metaverse is, we know how to act on it and contribute to it or gain from it. At the moment, from what I've seen, it's a 3D environment with only upper half of bodies chatting to each other. So it does remind me a little bit of Second Life. So we just don't know at the moment. Very interested, definitely following it. There should be some kind of a synergy, but at the moment it's still too much in development to make a strategy. Yeah, and the Chinese one as well. There's too many of them.
Hi, so hello. In terms of buildingSMART's offering the data dictionary service, it's sort of crossing over from buildingSMART being just standards and specifications organization into providing services. So is there like, more service-oriented type of things that you guys are looking into providing in the future? And for example, top of my head is something like BCF, for example, specifying how BCF should be implemented versus actually providing something of the service so that everybody doesn't have to implement them themselves. So like the data dictionary is sort of crossing this boundary now between, providing a service versus providing the structure or specifications of something that can be a service.
I go ahead, right? Okay. Yeah, that's a good one actually, and thank you for noticing that. In the last years, buildingSMART is actually transitioning from the organization just providing the standard and the overseeing the creation of the standards to being actually a software developer, because bSDD is an online platform that we developed. It's actually the first one. And there is another one actually under construction at the moment. It's called Validation Service, buildingSMART Validation Service. I think I mentioned yesterday during my presentation, we've been using it during the Implementers Forum to help vendors validating IFC file. So in very short terms, this is another web platform similar to bSDD. In this case, we are checking IFC files against syntax, schema, and conformity to the IFC standard, something that all the vendors have been requested for so long to buildingSMART, and this is our response. So yet again, another service. So yes, to your answer, nothing specifically on BCF, even though someone mentioned the idea of certifying or helping vendors better implement BCF. But it's a bit on hold, that discussion, to be honest.
Yeah, just to clarify and maybe nuance, yes, we are doing more software development, but we will never do end-user-oriented software development. That's still up to the market. The software vendors themselves need to compete with each other to provide multiple solutions. The software development we are doing is the development that the market itself doesn't want to do or cannot do. So the data dictionary, for example, is a perfect example of one central distribution center that none of the vendors themselves has the ability to create. It's just a too much fragmented market. So it makes perfect sense for buildingSMART to do that. And the validation service itself, it was on the request of software vendors to make sure that users and vendors know 100% sure which file is valid or not. So these kind of services, these kind of software developments fit buildingSMART. We are never going to do software development that competes with our members and our community. That doesn't make any sense. Aidan, yeah, one last question. Just also want to comment because I'm giving it over to Aidan. We're not just standards. I always get a little bit annoyed by that. We are trying to add value, and these software developments help add value. And I think Aidan will also mention the Accelerated Projects Program that has recently started to really help the industry find value with the standards and solutions. So it's not just theoretical standards and ISO processes. I had one last question here.
There was quite a few references yesterday to GIS, which is really such a strong shift from really just a couple of years ago, where sort of GIS was its own world and BIM was a separate world, and never the twain shall meet. Can you maybe just talk about how that's affecting any of the individual rooms or efforts, development projects that bring GIS and BIM together?
Just half of the answer probably. Talking only on IFC level, so just talking about the IFC standard, so I cannot talk about rooms, activities, I'm not that aware, but the latest IFC for the tree standard has been improved to accommodate more georeferencing functionalities. This was based on the request from the infrastructure owners, road, railway. They're used to different type of local engineering systems, geographic coordinate system, and the tunnel people are also stressing these points. So we've been enhancing these IFC for the tree standard to accommodate these, and we also made some tests with some vendors, including Esri, of course, to make sure that the solutions that we envision is actually implementable and well supported. So that's one part of the answer. But again, I'm not sure about the rest of the rooms, if there's anything going on.
Yeah, other parts of that answer is we have a memorandum of understanding with the Open Geospatial Consortium. We have a dedicated working group on BIM and GIS. It's actually split into multiple topics because it's two vague terms to be combined. It's about matching geometry, it's about matching API, semantics. So there's a lot going on BIM and GIS integration also during this summit. So this is it was a 1 minute left last question that basically exploded. So yeah, if you want to know more about BIM and GIS integration or any other topics, just you know how we look now. Just come to find us. We're happy to answer all of your questions. We don't always wear hats with propellers, so watch out for normal people as well. Thank you.
Thanks, thank you guys. So yeah, great to have some interaction there, and appreciate the time there. And if you need to shoot off to your rail games and things, feel free to do so. So we thought we'd finish this session from a sort of practical example of IDS in action and recently implemented in Planoly, who are also just been recently announced as new standard members of buildingSMART International. So I'd like to welcome Clive Jordan to the stage and talk a bit about some of the work that's been happening at Planoly.
So I'm going to start with something nice and then something nasty, or maybe talk about the elephant in the room, and then hopefully finish with something that's actually a practical example using bSDD and IDS. And I'm going to go very quick so we can get some coffee as well. The nice one. Last night was great. This is my first buildingSMART Summit, and just hearing the family talk, yeah, being together and saying nice things, but doing it for the good. And the quotes from people, you know, none of us do it for personal recognition. I've never done anything on my own, and I've got a whole list of quotes from last night at the dinner. And it was just so special to hear that there's a lot of people with the same mindset and the same passion to advance our industry together. And it's really good for us to be part of that now. So I'm really proud of our team and what we've accomplished, but I think that there's more that we can do together with the partnership between bSDD, between buildingSMART and Planoly. So that's the nice bit. The realistic side of things, the elephant in the room, we do so much with BIM, and it can be used for so many different things. There's so much more than just on that slide. And that's why we have standards like ISO 19650, and they are quite all-encompassing. So they start to create a lot of administration, and there are a lot of workflows, and these workflows lead to lots of documentation and lots of acronyms. So we have not just the BIM execution plan, a BEP, but we also have the concept of a pre-contract and a post-contract, and we have an EIR, an OIR, a PIR, and this is all in addition to bSDD and IDS and IFC, and man, it can get quite confusing. And this is what our industry looks at. You know, we're a group of people, we're really lots of smart people in the room, and we talk these acronyms, and I think that there's kind of like this funny thing that why did we have acronyms? It's mostly for people that are in a situation under pressure, like the military. Yeah, there's some acronyms that they use. I like the one FUBAR. I'm not going to explain it, and maybe you want to look up if you don't know about it. But this is what we've been doing to cope with this. So 3 years ago, we started to put teams together and say, how do we help our industry make, number one, ISO 19650 easier? And now we have over 250 teams that have created content, practical, not guidance, not another document, not another PDF that you have to read, but practical templates that can be implemented to make it easier. A practical workflow, simplifying it, understanding it in 3 simple steps rather than 57 steps. And so templates came out of this, and it became a simple one-button click inside of software. And that's the passion that I have. So my background is a civil engineer. And when I started to realize the power of code, that you could write 1 line of code and tomorrow 1 million people could use it for the better, for our industry, for building better and doing better. And that's what I was passionate about. So we combine this concept of software, now a one-button click, to create documents that are loaded with smart fields. And then this is my itinerary for Rome as well, that I used our new AI to be able to create inside of the application. That's, again, one button click to create an itinerary and know exactly where to get the best pizza. Anyway, so we say great things about what we're doing, obviously, but it's nice to hear other people say it as well. And this is what a great comment. You know, it's a dream to audit people that are using Planoly. So great, but how do we apply that here? And as I mentioned, okay, we've got lots of acronyms. We've got lots of complex and challenging steps to explain to the industry, everyone who needs to be part of this and do the work. And I'm a BIM nerd. I'm a civil engineer turned BIM nerd. And I go back, have been in those situations, go back to the office and then kind of sit in the corner. And you've been high-fiving at events like this, but then it becomes difficult to actually implement. So what can we do to help? What can we do to make this easier? Well, what we've done is implemented the bSDD connection here. So we've got classifications and properties inside of Planoly. And by now, when you're adding, as you start typing, you start to see things that you've picked. So this is uniclass as a classification that's been chosen. And when you create now a task, oops, I went a bit quick there. When you create a task, we also search for information. So if we're looking for a materials property and it's in the bSDD dictionary, and I shouldn't be using acronyms here, but it's okay in this audience, I suppose. And you're able to now directly apply that to your project inside of Planoly. And then those rules can also be added to, so we can start to define actually how we want to check it. And then in the exports, we have the ability to export an IDS, one button click, also filtered potentially for understanding, maybe this is the architect scope. And that export can then be imported into a bunch of different tools that are now starting to use IDS. So if you wanted to check the model in Solibri, for example, or if you wanted to use this to actually apply properties to models as you're creating them, that would be somehow easier. So machine readable content now, if you package it in a way that you've done it before, drag and drop to create it, now we have this scope that's built in a structured way that not only humans can understand, but machines can as well. And if you want to, this is the part inside of Planoly, if you're using model verification inside of Planoly, it's also one click to be able to understand when you drop the model in, whether it met those requirements. So I tried to go quite quickly there, just to kind of give you a flavor. We've got another session this afternoon digging in a lot deeper into bSDD and IDS, but we're really excited. I mean, maybe you can tell I'm super pumped about this now to be able to share what we're doing, because our focus is simple. And I think that, talking about the elephant in the room, we have to understand that complexity ourselves, but we need to translate that to the teams that are actually doing the work. And that's what we've been able to do as a little case study with the ISO 19650 standards. And that's what I'd love for us to be able to do with buildingSMART and the partnership that we have. Thank you very much. Let's get some coffee.
Thank you very much. I mean, really interesting how you apply it to your business. And I did have a couple of questions around AI and applying it to your workflows and things, but maybe we haven't got time for that. But that's for the conference. So thank you, Clive. Well, thank you, everyone. I think we had a sort of whistle-stop tour of buildingSMART. Thank you to Richard and to Léon and Evandro and Clive and Julien from those contributions. And thanks to the audience. And please go and enjoy some coffee. And we will come back in 30 minutes for the rest of the conference. So thank you very much.